Welcome to episode 17 of Marathon Talk, powered by Abbott World Marathon Majors. On this week's show, 2 heart-melting moments at the Leeds Marathon, a new 100-kilometer world record set at an eye-watering pace. We look back at a long, lonely, but ultimately lucrative trudge for one athlete, and we talk to the founder of a charity using the power of running to change young lives. Right, let's go. Martin, how are you? Since we've talked last, what have you been up to?
Getting wet. You know what? It's springtime, and each week on the show here, you're in California, and I'm in the south of England. And each time I sort of think to myself, well, there she is, sat in the sunshine, baking, Californian sunshine. And each week I ask you, have you still got snow? And this time you said, yeah, I've still got 15 feet of snow. Well, whereas in the UK, we're coming into spring, and often in May, the weather starts to get a little bit better. So last weekend, Liz and I had a camping trip planned in, right? For one of our son's soccer trip away. So every year, the whole soccer team, there's 3 of them, all the parents and the kids go away together and we all go camping.
Oh, how fun.
But this year, it did nothing but chuck it down. Not a little bit of light, fine rain, but proper steroids.
Were you camping with an umbrella over you? How did you do that?
It was hideous, honestly. Like everyone was so wet. Like we put a gazebo up to try and cook under it and it just dripping. Like we had so much wet clothing. The worst thing was, so I'll level with you a little bit. So we've got a little camper van. So me and Liz are like, yeah, right, it's dry in here. And we're in the dry. Although it's wet everywhere else, we put the kids in a tent so they can suffer. Right? So we put the kids in the tent. We're in the camper van. It's a good tent.
They're never going to want to go camping again.
Well, they're in this tent and we're in the van and, we can see them and all that stuff. And they're surrounded by friends. It's all great. Apart from this. So, when you're a grown up, most of the time when you go camping and it's raining, you pay extra attention when you zip the door up, right? When you zip the door of the tent. And the reason you pay extra attention to zipping the tent door up is because if you leave just an eensy teeny weeny bit of the flap, like not outside the tent, but inside the tent, there's this high risk of rain coming in the tent.
The water always finds a way in.
Right. So tell that to 4 9-year-old boys.
Oh, no.
So, of course, they go in the tent at bedtime after they've been messing about for hours. Don't do the door up. And it's absolutely pouring down, is a polite way of putting it. And all the rain is going not off the tent, but into the tent.
No,
they wake up in the morning. Yeah, they wake up in the morning. And fortunately, the tent's got these 2 little compartments, right? A kind of, what's it called? Like a little front porchy bit, and then the sleeping arrangement bit. So it's only 2 little sections. But the entire porch was completely flooded.
Was there no option to pack up your van and go home?
Well, so here's how we address the scenario. Well, we'll get on to running in a moment, I promise. So what we did was I heard these 4 little voices in the morning. Dad, it's very wet in here. And I opened, I didn't need to open the door. It was already open. And of course, all the stuff, they weren't wet because they were in the separate little bit, but all their stuff was soaked.
Right.
All their clothes were wet. Like everything was wet. So you know what we did? We put them in their wetsuits and we went to the water park.
Oh my God. I mean, your world is a water park at that point.
That's what we did. We put them in wetsuits and we put our wetsuits on. We just went to the water park and we jumped off inflatables into a lake.
Right. I mean, if you're wet already, why not?
Yeah, we just got wetter.
Unbelievable.
There we go.
How's running going? How's your training?
It's all right. I did a little 10-miler the other day with an attempted 3-miler in the middle. It's kind of so I keep making these little returns to fitness. And a big part of my return to fitness at this time of year is often a couple of key sessions that I like to do. So a 10-miler, And I have a standard kind of thought around a 10 where I'll either just try and chip it out at a nice, consistent, for me, 7-minute milings or so. Or the other run I'll do is I'll do a run, but I'll try and do three or 4 miles in the middle where I just increase the intensity. And of course, I know, like when I increase the intensity of those 3 miles, like in the middle of a 10 miler, 3 or 4 miles, like each increment that goes up, I know how fit I am,
Right.
So because I know that if I can glide along at like whatever, 6:30, and then I can do a 6:10, and then I might do a 5:50, I'm like, oh, great, I'm okay. Well, I couldn't get under 6:20.
But that's good feedback and something to get back out there and gun for next time. Yeah, we gotta have these little carrots in front of us to see progress.
It's all relative, isn't it? And so at the moment, I'm working harder than I should be for the pace that I'm running at.
But that's a really good tactic to even break up the monotony of a run, to just throw some harder miles in there. It really breaks it up nicely so that it doesn't get boring out there.
Yep, feels better when you've done it as well. I tell you one other final thing. One of my boys did their first ever track race at the weekend. How about that? Loved it.
I love that. Was he smiling? Did he enjoy it?
He loved it.
Good.
He absolutely loved it. Yeah, he's only 9. It's part of a little thing called Quad Kids, which is actually 4 little events that the kids do. He's never done a competition before on a tartan track. So it was good fun. They run 600 meters. They run 75 meters. They throw a howler, which is like a sort of foamy javelin-y little thing, like a ball with a tail. And they do the long jump. Yeah.
Fantastic.
So how about that?
So he gets a taste of track and field.
Yeah, he loved it. It was the county champs, which is like the regional championships in the US, I guess, or the state championships.
Right.
Yeah, so he did that. And he came second, which is brilliant.
Oh my gosh. So of course he had a good time. He got second place.
Yeah, he did the 600 in 1:57.
Oh, so genetics.
Yeah, I know. 1:57. He's 9 years old. He's a year young in his little competition. And we were working it out. We were like, that's about 5.5 minute miling.
That's decent.
So
my goodness.
We figure I'm not going to be able to keep up with him for long.
And how long has he been practicing? Because hasn't he been running for about a month? Has he been running?
Doesn't really. Yeah, he doesn't. He went to the running club, like to do his first little club session for about a month. It must be about a month ago. Yeah. So, he's learning.
That's fantastic. As a running parent, I love to see my daughter run. Doesn't love it, but when she's out there, when it's her decision and she's out there doing it, to see that joy on her face and to see that it's social, really just fills me with joy. So, I'm excited.
2 of mine, they do it. They're like that. They don't really say they love it, but one of them just loves it. So great fun.
He dared to say he loved it. Did it rain at the competition?
No, it was sunny and warm. Great. And we asked him if he liked it, and he said, yeah, he loves it.
Oh, that's so wonderful.
All good.
Yes.
Yeah. Welcome to like the next 15 years, probably, of carrying bags and things like that.
Yes, traveling and pasta.
Mm-hmm. How about you? How's your running?
It's been great. That we have had such beautiful weather, despite the fact that there's still an extraordinary amount of snow in our front yard. Our trails are starting to melt out. So we were at the track the other day, and I did this big loop on the trails, and I was so giddy to just be running on dirt again. I couldn't believe how fast it melted down there. 1 week, there was still 6 feet of snow on the ground. And a week later, it was clear, not even puddles. We didn't even get muddy. We didn't even get the thrill of like cross-country grit and mud. It was just a beautiful day. So I'm so excited to get our trails back. And it was also Mother's Day here in the US. So I got a nice chat with my mom on the phone and a beautiful card and poem from my daughter. And we just had a beautiful brunch in the morning. Just a good, relaxing day. So I'm off of a beautiful Mother's Day from yesterday.
How great. Right. Let's talk about what's going on in the world of running. In the UK, it was the Leeds Marathon last weekend. It was actually renamed the Rob Burrow Leeds Marathon in honour of the former Leeds Rhino rugby league player Rob Burrow. Now, Rob's story is incredible. He is such an inspirational man. As a player, he was, of course, outstanding. And now he's living with motor neurone disease, but he is still outstanding, continues to do phenomenal work since his diagnosis in raising funds and awareness about the condition. And, Rob, we interviewed Sam on the show recently, and more about Sam shortly, but, Rob has no movement and no speech. So, he's got this beautiful smile, but, and he has to use an electronic speech. I don't know what the correct word is, but he speaks through a computer rather than, his own vocal cords. Because with motor neurone disease, having the capacity to be able to speak is one of those things that goes. And for Rob, that's gone. But it's just wonderful to see the way in which he encourages people living with and experiencing and surrounded by motor neurone disease in their lives. He has been supported in everything that he does by his great mate and former fellow player, Kevin Sinfield, who has done some amazing and very grueling running challenges to support the cause and raise money for motor neurone disease, and particularly, Rob Burrow's story. And at the Leeds Marathon, it was incredible. Kevin pushed Rob around the course in Leeds. Together, they've raised more than £8 million for motor neurone disease charities that run 7 back-to-back ultra marathons, 7 marathons in 7 days, a run of 101 miles in 24 hours. But of all of those things, there's a remarkable moment on Sunday as Kevin pushes Rob around the course in Leeds. And then at the finish, if you haven't watched the video, right at the finish with about 5 meters to go, Kevin kind of bends over Rob's chair. And Rob's body is frail, now and thin, right? And, Rob was an athlete who was fast and agile and strong, and you used to watch him play rugby league and be inspired. And Rob lifts him up out of his wheelchair and cradles him in his arms with about 5 meters to go and crosses the line carrying his mate out of his chair and just kisses him. And it's amazing because it's like these two men connected by sport, connected by running. And you can see Kev just give him a big kiss and a big hug and kind of talk to him in his ear. And you think, now that's so amazing. Isn't running so powerful?
It was one of those moments that you're like, this sport just gives and gives and gives. And it was such an emotional finish, but it wasn't the only emotional moment. Our friends of the show, Chrissy Wellington and Sam Perkins, were also there. They're in our episode 15. If you haven't heard it, so inspirational, your interview with them, Martin. But there's just so much good that comes of this sport, just heroic ability, people showing up and not just showing that they can make a difference in their own lives, but making sure they're making a difference in the lives of others. It was a great, great finish line to witness.
Chrissy and Sam had another crack because we when we found out after their run at London, of course, they were trying to finish London and didn't get to do it. And it was heartbreaking watching the coverage of Sam after London talk about not being able to finish. So they went up to Leeds and had another go. And this time, Sam's chair didn't break and they were able to make it all the way. There's some brilliant pictures on Chrissy Wellington's Twitter feed of Sam and Rob actually and their team side by side on the course, and brilliant footage of the moment Chrissy and the team with Sam Perkins crossed the line. So yeah, well done. Well, everybody that ran Leeds, but particularly Rob, Kevin, Chrissy and Sam.
The beauty of Chrissy and Sam's story of falling short in London, this finish line must have just felt so sweet to finally cross it. What a team.
What a team. Now, at the sharp end of the distance and the speed scale, Aleksandr Sorokin recently broke his own 100-kilometer world record in his hometown of Vilnius in Lithuania. Aleksandr, who's 41, ran 6 hours, 5 minutes, 35 seconds, shaving a mere 6 seconds. That's not much of a break after being out there for such a long time. 6 seconds off his previous world record that he set last year. So yeah, he also holds world records over 100 miles, 10 hours and 51. And the longest, furthest run in 6 hours, 12 hours, and unbelievably, the furthest run in 24 hours, which is 319 kilometers. Isn't that unbelievable? 319 kilometers in 24 hours. His pace, when he set the new 100K world records, 3:39 per kilometer.
That really blew me away to see that when you break it down into kilometers and see how swift he's covering such a long distance. Do you like the ultra distances? I feel like when you get out there, you kind of get lost in the scenery and you sometimes go farther than you're anticipating. Would you like to do ultra races?
No, I've done a few ultras, but not really my cup of tea. Because I tell you why, I love being outside and I love being outside for a long time. But I don't want to rush it.
Yeah.
So I don't want to feel like I'm in a hurry. And so, an ultra race, like trying to cover a super long distance as quick as you can. If I'm going to race, I want it over in under an hour.
What's the farthest you've run?
Oh, good question. Probably about 60 miles in one run.
Wow.
I've run 100-miler, but I split that into stages. I've run 240 miles, 260 miles, but that was over a week.
Was it harder than an Ironman because you're just using the same muscles over and over again?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
I think so. But ultra running's super cool at the moment, isn't it? It's pretty cool. Yeah, lots of people are doing ultra running. Have you ever done an ultra?
Never. But I'm very similar to the mindset of you that I love to go the distance. I a few years back, ran from here in Mammoth Lakes where I live to Yosemite National Park.
Oh.
It was 28 miles. So that is the longest I have ever run. But I want to stop and have a sandwich next to a lake and take pictures with my phone along the way. So I really like to do it slowly and enjoy it.
Brilliant. Yeah, me too. Maybe, Deena, one day you will do an ultra, but I don't think I'll go and do another one. Maybe we should stick to going and racing in Cambodia over 5,000 meters. Because, you know what happened there.
Yes, Cambodian runner Bo Sumnung epitomized the loneliness of the long distance runner in the 5,000 meter final at the Southeast Asian Games. What a race. It was absolutely lashing down with rain, which you could relate to, right? From your camping trip, Martin. But she came home nearly 6 minutes after the winner, trudging around the track in complete isolation, but with the sparse crowd cheering her on all the same. It was such an inspirational story.
She got $10,000 for finishing as well, Deena.
From the Prime Minister.
I know. Let me just think this one through, right? I think if I enter the 5,000 metres at the UK Track Champs, and it's probably going to be one in 13:30 or something like that. So if I roll round in about 19 and a half minutes, 20 minutes, do you think Rishi Sunak will give me £10,000?
I think it's worth a try. I'm just saying. Oh. I think you should try it.
What about you? Roll up.
I would take a handshake from the Prime Minister, let alone $10,000.
What about you? Roll up to the US National Champs, run about, what would you have to run about? 21 minutes, I guess, $10,000 from Joe Biden. I don't reckon that they would even recognise our runs.
No, it's just such a heartwarming story because of the recognition. I think, we're out there running and a lot of times it is a lonely trudge, but to have that type of support is so beautiful to see. It was a fun story.
For this episode of Marathon Talk, I'm joined by the co-founder and CEO of the running charity. They support young people that experience homelessness and complex needs through running. It's great to be back in touch with Alex Eagle again. But I've also got Victor Macauley here, the running charity's partnership lead. And Victor ran the London Marathon back in April. It was his first one. It was part of a 10-year anniversary project that the running charity were doing, helping transform the lives of the 12 people who ran the London Marathon this year, but also the many more who will be encouraged and inspired by their performances. Alex, nice to speak to you again. We have spoken to you on the show before, but it's good to have you back.
Great to be here, mine.
And Victor, lovely to meet you. I'm really excited about hearing more about your story too.
Pleasure for having me here.
Right, Alex, let's start with you. For people that don't know, I've known about the running charity probably for about the last 10 years. I think we may have met at London in 2011 or 2012, and I got really excited by the work that you were doing, and particularly your passion and cause for using running. So just tell us a little bit about the running charity first.
So we're a charity based in London, Manchester and Leeds in the UK. We deliver running and personal development programs to young people aged 16 to 25 who are either experience homelessness or complex needs. Those complex needs can really kind of vary from kind of experiencing homelessness, can be around being a refugee, substance misuse, a real kind of multi-layered issues. And underpinning that, as what we try and do, is that the running charity is to use running as a vehicle to improve people's mental health and then kind of really help people build through and have more positive, healthier, happier lives.
And this project that you did this year, we were chatting just at the beginning of the show around how it's been like in the pipeline for a while.
Yeah, when James and I, the other co-founder of the charity, we were trying to get this in motion. The first project, we were hoping to get a group of young people to run the marathon, the London Marathon, but it's always been so historically hard to get a group into it. So, it marked 10 years and they had this community ambition to get different groups out running, and we managed to finally pull it off after 10 years. And I think it was just a really lovely thing to see, because the London Marathon is such an iconic marathon. And for the young people that most of them have experienced it, London in a really kind of different way to most of us. It's not always a place that's been that forgiving. And to be able to kind of flip that on its head and to run through those streets and see it in a different way, in a place of success and happiness, was quite a pleasure.
And Victor, that is really something, that I'm super excited about hearing, your story of the way in which you see, and saw London, because it's your first London Marathon. You've been with the running charity for a while now. How come you hooked up with the running charity?
I'm going to take it way back since 2012. So when I used to be homeless, Alex used to work in a center called New Horizon Youth Center, way back in King's Cross. So I used to be one of the homeless kids around there. But running was always part of the scheme, and it encourages young people to take part in it. But at that time, I was going through so many of a situation, and he was my support worker at that time. He introduced me to the running, and I wasn't keen on it at the start because obviously what issues that were happening. But then he encourages me more to get into it, start running, then end up getting my status. Then I had to move away from where I was staying in the homeless shelter, and then he invited me over again for the job that comes up, and ever since I've just stuck around. But it's been good. It's been good.
You've just stuck around. I mean, you kind of threw it in a bit nonchalantly, but 10, 11 years ago, you said, well, I was homeless on the streets of London, and then 10 years later, you're running around the streets of London as a part of this mass, festival. And it is, we often talk about running London as a privilege. It's a privilege to be there. And for me, there's a little bit of a warped sort of thing around that, because, it's like you see the streets through different eyes when you're running London. And your experience of seeing the streets of London, I guess, is very different, right?
Yeah, it is. Like you said, you used the word privilege. It is a privilege because I've never thought in my entire life I'll be able to do a marathon as a goal. And doing that was more like, it's hard to put into words because I never thought about it. But having the encouragement from other people kind of led me through every channel of it. And then the amount of people that are there, trying to support each other, trying to give us that boost to continue and keep going to the end. It was a great feeling. I never felt that way. Yeah.
So how did it start? So when did Alex say to you, do you fancy running London? And what was your response?
I think that conversation come because I started working for the charity now. So I'm more or less part of the team. But I think my first one was the half marathon. That was probably 3 years ago or so. But the London Marathon, obviously, because I'm part of the team, work together, helping more young people. So I understand, obviously, we would like to take part into it, and for the same goal of helping young people, because I know obviously the charity has been there for me from when I was a kid. I would say a kid, but as a younger. So I understand the importance of what the charity is all about, and doing the work that we're doing with young people. It was great. So when the opportunity came to the London Marathon, I was a bit skeptical about it, because I've watched it over telly and see how far it is. For me to even expect to go and do it, I don't think I'll ever do it. But what kind of helps me is the fact that we have a few of the other guys that have done it previously. They give us some tips of what you might be expecting, what you might not be expecting, what you need to do before the train and before the race and all that. So that kind of helps me a little bit more. So get to the starting line was a bit tough because you got all these butterflies around.
And I guess you had, like, because you're working for the running charity, because you've been involved, because, you know, the organisation had such a part to play in your life.
Yeah.
There's quite a pressure, I guess, of role modelling to the other people doing the race with you, because it wasn't just you, right? There was a team. I think you said there was 12 other people.
Yeah.
How do you find those people, Alex? Was there an open invitation from Victor, come and run with me? Or was it more, okay, we need to try and get people to do it? How did you find the 12 people? Tell us some of their stories.
So we work on largely in terms of, we partner with a lot of kind of vulnerable people services, and we receive either direct referrals in, or we work with young people over a period of time. I think the organisation is there for the long haul for young people. So even though a lot of these were first-time marathon runners, we had some experience of working with these young people for a period of time. So we lent into there and brought a few through that we knew that would set a good example in the group, that we knew would train for it on a consistent basis, would be turning up and setting that kind of role model. And Victor and Claude, the leads, and the other coaches that work for us, they are really tangible role models, simply because they've been through those life experiences and they've gone through all of the things or most of the things the young people who are currently trying to achieve are doing it. And you need that kind of ability to touch the success. You know, you can look at all the elite runners, and, you know, we have some fabulous runners. Like, I think the fastest was 2 hours 40, and that he wasn't going to be our fastest. We had other lads that just pulled out just before for a couple of injuries. Then we had all the way up to like 6-7 hours. So, you know, we're very much, we trained in a combination of ways. First of all, we had the kind of weekend group sessions and our evening long runs and those kind of things. But we also did a lot of kind of one-to-one work, especially to the young people that were probably quite nervous about doing such a distance. So we're lucky there. But, you know, I think from our group, we had a mixture of young people that were from backgrounds where running is a bit of a pastime. So we have a lot of young people who are refugees from the Horn of Africa, and, you know, they're very easy to engage into that work and support them through that. It's just supporting them with the other areas of their life that are very complex at the moment in terms of immigration and the Home Office and things like that. But then you have people on the flip side who have never really run before. 5K is a huge difference, but they're in a bit more stable accommodation, but they're a little bit more chaotic in terms of potentially substance misuse or mental health issues.
Yeah, talk to me about the specifics of that. So, you know, many people listen to this, or they won't understand, right? Like, look, Victor, I've never been homeless, okay? So as an adult, right? So I can't understand in the same way that you can, the stresses and the discomfort and the challenges that you and, you know, some of your friends and colleagues and other runners that you might support with the running charity go through. So, like, what's that like when you get picked up to run something like this, asked to run something like this, and then you need extra help? Because people listening will think it's all about the running, you know, it's all about covering a long run and stuff like that. But there's so much more to getting a group of young people to the start and finish of a marathon than the training with this kind of project, right?
I mean, like, it's not all about running. When you see the word the running charity, probably what comes in your mind first is running, because that's what you see from there. But there's a lot more, like, it's beyond the running part of it. We have a holistic people that are doing certain things that support young people. For me, personally, I was homeless, and I know exactly what it feels like to be homeless. And to do something like this is beyond measures, because I never thought I'd be able to do that. But what we do in terms of like supporting young people is one of the most fundamental things, because we tend to build a great relationship with some of the young people. Their stories are very inspiring compared to our story. Our story is inspiring to them. And we all try to work collectively, trying to support each other, because most of the time, you might think that you're not learning from young people that have gone through adversity, but you do, because their story is inspiring you. And then you take that on board, it becomes a live thing for you. So for them to even open up and tell us about their stories and give us the chance to support them, and every single time you call them for a session, it means massive for us. So we become more like a role model to them, because we've been in their street, not in the street, but we've been in a situation most likely probably similar to what they've gone through or what we've gone through. So if they're talking about their story to us, it's more easier for us to relate and understand it. And then the trust level becomes more increasing. Then it's just easy for you to do the training with them.
Yeah, so Alex said you had like a very big range of people on the start line. Did you all go to this, like, did you meet at Greenwich? Did you all stand at start line together? Like, were you all spread out? How did that work?
Everyone was on a different pen, right? But before the race, we already organized it. So we have our team, staff team. We already organized who's going, what time, and who's going the other time. So if my time starts at 10 o'clock and you go over young people that start at same 10 o'clock, I had to be with them. But then we've got fast runners that start earlier on. Then you have fast runners who are staff members that can go with them. So it's already been organized. So we don't just allow the young people to go by themselves. We have to go with them. And then you end up having some people that can't run. This is the first marathon, obviously, but they're difficult. You got staff members that will run with them throughout the race, which is incredible, because that's the time you feel like you're doing your job more than ever, because that support is always there, and that's what they need. When you get to the finish line, then end up having that medal to know that you already accomplished something important. The amount of emotion that comes from the young people, not just for them, but just to say thank you for being there for me. It's one of the best feelings ever.
I love it. I also love the fact you're proud of like being there, and when someone does say to you, thank you for being there for me, that's really important. It feels like an important part of your work at the charity, being there on someone's terms, no matter what they are. So what were what were some of the stories from the other competitors that you can share before we get to you, Victor? So other people ran kind of when you got together, perhaps at the end. What did they tell you? What were their stories of this was hard or that was fun?
Few of them might be. Majority of them are like first runners, just like myself. So there's one of the boys that we have. He had never done it, obviously, and he always stops every mile just so he could get the food and get some of the bits like water, sweets, just so he could find a way to relax a bit, so he could just find a way to continue. But it was just funny while he was saying it, because I'm just thinking if you're a runner, you don't want to stop. You just want to keep going. But he's using that as a form of break. Take sweets and then relax, then keep going again. But it was just fun. Other people have other difficulties that they feel that they wouldn't be able to finish it or continue the run. But the mindset that we as coaches, what we instill to our young people is, when you start something, let's try and finish it regardless of the timing. The timing is not important, because we look at life in general, it's not important. Even though time is important, but in terms of the race, it's not important. If you start it, you finish it. And that's what we try to instill in them. And we are so happy because no one dropped out. Everyone finished the race, which was one of the greatest feelings to see within that period of time.
I love it. I love the fact if you start it, you're going to finish it. It's a powerful metaphor, isn't it, for life, particularly when you're looking for change, and you're looking for change in life. Sometimes you can impact upon that yourself. Other times, of course, you can't. It's really hard.
Yeah.
But you've got to start. You've got to start, right? And you've got to start doing something. So, Victor, what about your race? How did it unfold? Tell me about it.
I feel it went really well, but I kind of been struggling in between. In between few miles, it was really good because I have this mindset of myself while I was training prior before the marathon that I need to run the first 3 hours without stopping. So that will calculate. I will need to calculate myself in terms of how many miles I've covered and how many miles remain. But because that was my first one, my colleague was telling me, you might as well just take it easy because you might burn out at some point. But most of my long run that I've been doing, it was quite good. So I've been trying to spread myself within that first 3 hours run. Then he will to tell me how long left and how much I've covered. But when I get towards the 23, 24 mile, that's when I start feeling it because it's like that's the cramp city for me. And every part
Cramp City.
It's cramp city. Because every part of my body was so cramped that I can't move, can't even have my strides so high. Yeah, I struggled a lot from 23 to 26.
Do you know how long it took you? How long did it take you to finish?
4 hours, 27 minutes.
Okay, wow, that's pretty good. Like that is good. You know, that is faster than average. So the average finish time in London Marathon is slower than that. So you're not only are you a London Marathon finisher, you are also a faster than average London Marathon finisher, right? So let's talk about the cramp city.
Yeah.
Like, so, you know, because lots of people listening will understand what that feels like. So what, you're running along the embankment and suddenly things start to ping?
Yeah, so like I start feeling my calves first, so it's get really intense. You know that if you're trying to stride your legs longer, then you can't, so you're just making it short. And I start feeling my left calf first, and then later the right. And I feel like, okay, this is the end for me. Even though I've been trying my best and push myself as much as I like, this is the end. But then the crowd kind of keep us going as much as I can, like keep going. They kind of encouraging us. Get towards Westminster, then I start feeling my knee. I start feeling my knee around Westminster period. Get towards the mall now. Every part of my body is dead. So all I could do is now just more or less jogging. So because my aim, I was thinking of going around the 4 hours mark. But if we went to enter Cram City, I just couldn't continue. So I ended up keep walking or run, walk. But it was a great time. It was a great event.
And when you're going through that, you know, when you run a marathon, like often you've got everything physically that you need, right? If you've done the training, you've got everything physically that you need. But on the day, it's your head, you know, and your psychology and your thoughts that get you through. Yeah. So what were you thinking about?
You know what, like my life hasn't been good since I've been in the UK, and I know the kind of struggle that I've been through, that then the kind of work that I'm doing, how we're changing young people's lives. At that moment, obviously, the only thing that I had in my head was knowing that I have started something, I need to finish it. Regardless of the struggle, how much it might be painful for me to finish it, I've gone through something worse than the finish line. And then if I could replicate that in my life, and I feel like then I can get there no matter what. If I had to crawl to get to the finish line, I'll crawl, because I feel like in my time going through adversity, it takes time for something good to come in my life. But when I had other people around me to support me and all that, it makes it more easier. And I'm doing the same thing for young people here. If I could pull out, then I'll become not a good role model to the other young people that I'm trying to encourage. And I'm not trying to say that's the best thing to do or whatnot, but I just feel like I've gone through a lot, and some of the young people have gone through a lot. It's a way of how we could to encourage everyone to like do something great. And there's so many thoughts that were going through my head, but I know obviously if I start something out to finish it, regardless of how painful or how struggle I have to go through it.
The thing you say about, you know, I've been through things harder than this finish line. You know, I've run through things that have been through things harder than the finish line. Like Alex, kind of what's your take on the young people's runs, you know, the performances that they put in, like the stories that they told, you know, how are you feeling about it all?
I'm always incredibly proud. I think, you know, from all ends of the spectrum, I think, first of all, you've got, you know, young people that find it easier physically and can go through it. But what you've got are some really tough cookies. You know, some of our young people have been through quite, you know, horrendous experience, whether that be kind of being a victim of torture all the way through to kind of, you know, historical abuse. You know, so they've been through a lot in life. And I think one of the things that we never really have to worry too much about our young people when they're in that kind of challenging moment, is whether they've got the grit and determination. It's our job to kind of prepare them for when that might come and when and how you lean into it. But like we had a young person who, the night before they were having a panic attack and they were having an anxiety attack. They slept an hour, and they were sick during the race, but they finished. And then we had another young person that who they kept on calling us, because even during the race we were shepherding them. I remember him calling me and a guy that I was running with, and he was like, "Oh, I've got so far to go. I'm on like mile 15." And I remember us thinking, we're on mile 9. Stop rubbing it in. So we had other young people that were just, needed that kind of reassurance during the race. And then we had others that were just absolutely impressive and really dug deep to get through it. And I think, they're all inspiring, really. I think you're always kind of the authority figure, being the kind of the coach or the person that's leading it. But I think, we all have our different vulnerabilities, and we run with young people. And I was running with a young person throughout, along with one of our volunteers, and you could just tell we were slowing it down beyond belief. And I think he took his opportunity at Canary Wharf to ditch us. And then he he like doubled the speed of the first half of it. So, you've got these really impressive guys and girls that are just, they turn up, they show up, they roll with the punches that life gives them. And just going back to the kind of finishing, I think that's one of the kind of things that we try to install. So many of the opportunities and challenges our young people face are often out of their control. They can't find the right things. They can't speed up home office applications. They can't access the right mental health services. So it's very easy for them to just go, I'm just not going to engage in this anymore. And part of that running is just reintroducing them to the process of finishing and to start something and get that ball rolling. No matter how slow you're going, it's faster than not going anywhere. And that's the beauty, I think, what we can take from running, is you just put one front foot in front of the other. It don't matter how fast you are, really, but it's your race. You run it. No one does it for you, and those lessons that people can kind of transfer in life. And then it just opens their world up to different things. Once they've done something that they physically didn't think they were capable of doing, that's when we've got them. Like, we've got our claws in them then, and Victor can do his development work with them. So we're, I know he's helping a young person write a business plan, and he's, supporting a young person who's just had a baby and she's being messed around by the council and she put her in terrible accommodation. So, the work is about how do you take those lessons from running and those moments of inspiration that running gives us and turn it into something that's more long-term and more sustainable. That's where the coaches and the guys really, really excel. We did this post-participation survey recently where we tracked down all the kind of young people over the past 10 years and surveyed them. I think it was something like 94% of them were in employment, 100% were in safe accommodation, 9 in 10 were in private renting, 95% of them never went back into homelessness again. These kind of real tangible things that sound ridiculous when you attribute it to running, but I think as runners, we know the power of it, and that kind of ability to work through difficult things or face adversary or face those difficult moments where you feel like giving up, and you try and find a different route or a different pace and you roll with those punches. And I think I've got so much respect for them all, because they put me to shame when I'm too lazy to get out.
I think you're saying, like, it doesn't matter how slow you're doing it, just to tee it up. So that, because Victor took you to the cleaners, right?
5 hours 30 for my first marathon. It was,
well done. Your first one too?
My first one. My ankles have never really allowed me to go above a half, and started some new physio stuff, built up the ankle again, and now it was just a rubbish excuse. So
yeah. Well, good for you.
It was really lovely. And I run with a volunteer who has run, I think, 17 marathons, London marathons, and he coached me through it. He was a superstar, and it was. I've lived on the marathon route probably about 75% of my life, and it was always something that I'd wanted to do, and to be able to do it at that 10-year mark. I was in the hospital of the week with a seized up back, And I was like, I'm running. And the nurse went to me and said, I'm not going to give you any advice whether to run the marathon or not, because I know you runners ignore us. So
especially when it kind of, goes through your borough, or, it's so close to home, so important.
Yeah.
Victor, last word for you, mate. So what would you say to people listening who might be struggling in some context, of their life? They're listening to this, but running is it's so important. It's so important to them. Like, what would you say to them when people are struggling about what running can continue to give them?
I always say to myself, like, for me, running is a safe place for me. When I feel like I'm hitting rock bottom, I just put on my trainers and go for a run, clear my mind. It's something that more or less kind of saved me in a way, because regardless of what I'm going through, I always use running as part of my daily routine in terms of like getting through my day to day. Even though if I see a therapist or whatnot, but I feel like that is very important. I would like to say to people out there that going through a situation, all is not lost. Sometimes in life, something's going to be heating you up. You might feel that that's the end of the world. But if you shoot your mindset and try to think on the positive side of things, there are better things that you could achieve that you might not even thinking right now. Because now we're only thinking about the now. But if you start something today, there's always an achievement for it tomorrow. It only takes the first step for you to come outside your front door, put on your trainers, and then hit the road. If you do that, you've conquered anything, because that's the hardest bit. People can't leave their house to go for a run. They find it like it's hard. When you put your trainers, come out the door, you've worked. And that's the greatest thing you ever do. By the time you come back, you forgot about everything that you've gone through, that you've been thinking while you were inside that Kibuku or wherever you are. Because when you're out there, your mindset is already cleared up. So all is not lost. You just lost that point.
Thanks, Victor. That's brilliant. That's really helpful. Even for me, I've been running a long time. So, that is great advice. Really, really sound advice. Like, thanks for, completing London Marathon this year. Thanks for being a role model for the team. Thanks for keeping Alex on the straight and narrow. Someone has to. And you never know, Victor, has it inspired you to do another marathon maybe?
Yeah, obviously, like it's not just one marathon, like I want to keep doing it because I feel like it's part of the job, to be honest. I feel like the more marathon we do, the more runs we do, the more we'll be able to help more young people. For me, it's not more personal to me, but it becomes more personal to the amount of young people who trying to change their lives. That is what important to me, to be honest, right now. So it's not all about me, it's about how much I can stretch my hands to hundreds of young people out there. So if there are 4, 5, 6 marathons that I can run to help change these people's life, I'm right here to do it.
Brilliant. Guys, it's been lovely to speak to you. If you're interested in finding out a little bit more information about the great work that the running charity do, pop along to therunningcharity.org, where I'm sure, Alex or Victor would be delighted to hear from you. Guys, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, mine.
Martin, what a great interview. I enjoyed that so much. What will you be up to in the next couple of weeks?
I'm away doing some Stormbreak work. So I'm off to a conference in Bedfordshire. Actually, Bedfordshire is a county in the kind of East Midlands, I guess, the east of the country. And I used to teach there. So I'm wondering if I will see any schools or teachers that I used to work with, but I was a long time ago, about 25 years ago.
Is it countryside? So will you be running in the country or in the city?
It's where the place is. The conference is in countryside. So I'm quite looking forward to it.
Yeah, beautiful.
We're going up and we're doing a little workshop about movement and mental health and kids' physical activity and things like that. And then I'm not sure I'll get a run in. I might. And then I'm prepping for my daughter's Duke of Edinburgh Award this weekend, which is like an expedition that the kids can do here in the UK, where they pack a bag that's way too big, go off walking, camp out overnight, and then walk somewhere else the following day. So she has a Duke of Edinburgh Award walk this weekend. Yeah, and I hope to get some running in the next couple of weeks, see if I can build on my 10-miler, maybe drop in a slightly longer progressive pace run. And it's at this time of the year, Deena, I'm a bit of a creature of habit because I start to bring in some mile repeats And it's always, like I haven't run any mile repeats for about a year. Probably, no, that's a fib. Probably about 6 months. But the first time you bring them in, it's kind of always a bit of a truth light, isn't it? It's like shining a light of truth on where you are in your running, because when you do mile repeats, you have nowhere to hide.
And it's that distance that you can't help but compare yourself to your peak of fitness last year. And so I will just go ahead and say that wherever you are, it's a great starting point.
Well, next time we meet, it will serve as both an incentive for me to do the run. I think I'll do 6 mile repeats, and I usually have 90 seconds rest between each one.
Oh, and that's short rest?
Yeah. Well, you giving me a bit longer?
I would give you a little longer.
Okay. Maybe I'll take 2 minutes. Thanks, coach.
Yeah.
Because it always gives me an indication of, like, I tend to start the session in May, and then, we'll see how we get on with what I can come back with.
Yeah, give yourself mile repeats with 2 minutes rest. And then when you come back for another session of mile repeats, try to hit those same times with shorter rest.
Thanks. Yeah, I will. Typically what happens when I do this is I start too quickly and I blow to smithereens after about 3. And then I have to finish the last 3 and it's just a grovel fest.
Martin, there's no other way. I would totally recommend that. Absolutely. Then you got the most out of the workout when you're really suffering in the last few.
What about you? What are you up to?
I am really excited. The weather looks great this coming weekend. So I am going to take my daughter out of school on Friday, and we'll drive down to Southern California, and we're going to spend the weekend on the Channel Islands. Not the UK Channel Islands. Let's get that clear. So Channel Islands off the coast of Southern California. It's a short, 1 hour ferry ride out to the islands, and we'll snorkel and hike around, see some bald eagles, some island fox. I'm really excited about it.
So will you have to take a wetsuit? Is it so you can be in the snow with 15 feet and then just a few hours later you're snorkeling with great whites or whatever that happens to be out there?
Yeah, and it is whale migration right now.
Oh,
so
wow.
with some luck, we will see some gray whales out there.
Wow, that'd be amazing.
Just a couple of weeks ago, there was some killer whale pod that was out in the waters in Southern California, and one of the whales had a genetic defect that he's totally white. He has the black and white face, but his whole body was white instead of black. And I got to see pictures on social media, but it would be a thrill to be out there and see that.
Yeah, well,
I'm putting that in the universe in hopes that happens.
Okay, well, I hope you have a wonderful time. What a trip.
Thank you. And I hope your daughter has better weather for her outing next weekend than you guys had camping last weekend.
So do I. Right, that's about it for this episode. Deena, have a wonderful time in the Channel Islands. I hope my daughter's camping is slightly less wet and my mile repeats go a little better than perhaps I hope they do. And good luck with your running. In fact, enjoy the run wherever it takes you.